Welcome to the Generation Kids Daily Devo podcast, where we move from wonder to worship, looking for God at work in the world around us, ready to ask the tough questions and discover what His Word has to say to us. Today's episode is titled, Is It Cake? And it comes from me, Casey Taylor. Nowadays, we've all been here, at least once or twice. Completely caught up on all the shows that we like,
I love it.
all the ones that we've been told to check out,
You got it.
and then you come to the place that none of us really wants to be, scrolling past all the weird shows that streaming services throw into the mix to round out their services, but that most people aren't really ever going to watch unless they're really bored and the title is interesting. One of those shows caught my attention, and I actually wound up watching every episode of this random show over several seasons.
That's a you
It
problem.
was titled, Is It Cake? What does that even mean, is it cake? Well, I better check it out and see. And so I did. And several seasons later, I had watched all of the episodes of a show dedicated to cake artists who made cakes so real that they actually created a show that challenged contestants to figure out if there really was a suitcase, a boot, a football, or any number of other objects, or is it cake?
Look at that.
When you see how amazing some of these cakes were and how real they actually looked, to the point where many times people didn't choose correctly and tried cutting into real objects, only to find out they hadn't found the cake, you can see why they decided to make a show to bring to light the fact that cake can be created to look so real in the form of everyday objects that they made a show to prove it, and a show I couldn't help but watch. But other than being impressed with the cake artistry, I was also reminded of something important that we can learn from this show, that not everything is as it seems. It's possible to appear to be authentic and real, and actually be more like cake. Sometimes spiritual cake instead of spiritual honesty and reality.
But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not look at him, for the Lord sees not as a man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7.
In this Old Testament story, the Lord asked the prophet Samuel to go visit the house of a man named Jesse, because he'd find the man that would be king among Jesse's sons. And when Samuel saw Eliab, Samuel thought to himself, surely this is the guy. Look how tall and imposing he is. And this passage was God's response to him. You see, God isn't looking for something posing as goodness. He's looking for the real thing. When we eventually learn about David, the boy that the Bible eventually labels as the man after God's own heart, we learn that he desires so much to please the Lord and to honor God with his inner life and with his actions. And even though he makes mistakes, we see that usually his first action as king, or even as he waited to be king, was to wait to hear and to follow the Lord's voice. David was the real deal. He wasn't cake. Today, we might meet people who put on big smiles and who hold the doors open for us, or people who say things like, "Bless your heart," when what they really mean inside is, "Hurry up, please, you're walking too slow." Especially in places where church is a normal part and tradition of life, and everyone around you goes somewhere for church. It's common to see people dressing like church people, smiling like church people, and wanting others to see them as church people. But sometimes in their hearts, they're cake. They're not the real deal Jesus people. The fruit of goodness within us doesn't produce cake-like fruit, shaped like courtesy, iced with a smile, and flavored with pleasantries. When goodness is real, we won't just say, "Bless your heart." We'll try to be a blessing with our actions, because goodness isn't about what we see, it's about what is real. It's not for others to see, in order that we might be thought of highly. It's about our hearts to honor God with our actions, our words, and generosity, even if no one but God sees. Goodness isn't about being right, or just thinking about good things. It's about the things we believe, changing our hearts and our minds, and having that goodness make its way into our actions. It's not about appearance. It's about what's beneath, because the outside might look real, but the inside could look like cake. And even though cake can be really good, it's not real goodness.
Now it's time for
Today's Big Question!
Today's big question is, what is a time that you pretended to feel a certain way about something because of how you thought others would feel about your honest thoughts or feelings? In other words, how many times have you shown the world a picture of yourself, but it's the cake version? Now, remind yourself or someone around you, God loves you and wants you to be who He created you to be, unique and with unique good work set in front of you, to share with the world as you're honestly you in front of God and honestly good in your thoughts and intentions towards others. Thanks for listening to the Generation Kids Daily Devo podcast. If you want to keep in touch with us on all our social media platforms, check out the links in the description. And if you'd like to help support us as we continue to create meaningful content for kids of all generations, please subscribe to our Patreon by visiting us at patreon.com/wearegenerationkids.